Alright, so today's lecture is going to be on Kant's a priori. And before we get into Kant's a priori, I do just want to say we're going to approach it today in terms of our predispositions, right? I'm going to talk about my predisposition on Kant a little bit, but it's also like a general predisposition for everybody to learn Kant. I think when you go to school and you go to college, a lot of times the college will require a student to take a philosophy class to graduate, whether even though it's not like a philosophy major. Like down at the campus, down at Denver Metro, you would have, if you took a business major, you'd have to take an intro to philosophy class and an intro to ethics class. And a student in general, when they take a philosophy class, they're going to have to go through, usually at first, there's a ancient Greek philosopher or two, but you'd pretty much understand that there was Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. And then most teachers would teach a modern philosopher, at least one, and then they'd perhaps go into like an 1800s German philosopher, and then they'd go through, someone in the 20th century, right? And this is kind of like, in a way, the progression or the predisposition that I took for me to learn Kant, right? So what I'm saying is, I learned all these people before I learned Kant. Kant is like one of the last persons I learned because he was harder, right? And I needed to have the right lessons before I could, be able to process Kant properly, right? What drew me to Kant was the first time I took Kant, when I sat through a semester, or tried to sit through a semester, I didn't understand what my professor was saying. Like, I understood very small percent, and I never really sat in a class where I didn't really know what was going on. But after a while, after a couple semesters, I started getting Kant better. Excuse me. I actually have a couple of semesters of Kant recorded on 1080p that's in my possession, and I don't know what I'm going to do with it. I'm going to talk to my teacher about it, and maybe one day after he retires or something, we could share them, or we can make different videos or something. But I do want to say, do not get discouraged when you're doing Kant. It was very hard for me at first, and that's what drew me to Kant, was that he was so hard to understand, right? And I've lost count of how many classes of Kant I've taken. And that's the only class that I've lost in count at. But I feel like, in a way, I had to have learned a lot of other philosophers for me to understand Kant. Like, I had to really, really get down a lot of philosophers that were thinking during the 20th century. And I think what really, really got me here to shoot this video, here, is during the pandemic, I got into Nietzsche. And Nietzsche, his philosophy is about the a priori as well. And his and Kant's is a little different, but for me to really understand Kant, it took me really understanding Nietzsche as a tool to understand Kant's a priori, right? And this is like my predisposition of where I'm at with this video today. And when I say that I understood a small percent of what my teacher was saying, I'm going to say roughly 40% of what he said is what I understood. And that's just very small for me. Because initially, the first class I took with Dr. Tanzer, it was this existentialism class. And I would say that's my favorite upper level division philosophy class I've ever taken. The first time I took it. Because I remember after every philosopher, he would allow us to ask questions, and I would ask a few questions to check if I was on the same page logically with these philosophers, and I felt like I was with Dr. Tanzer putting out his existentialism philosophy every step of the way throughout the whole semester. And I took in that existentialism class with them 3 or 4 times, but at least 3 times. Also, mostly I felt who taught me Kant through Dr. Tanzer was his Heidegger, right? And I've taken Dr. Tanzer's Heidegger at least 3 times, and I've taken Heidegger at least total 4.5 times, and if I've taken it with Dr. Tanzer 4 times, then I've taken it 5.5 times, right? And after the last time I've taken those 2, I told Dr. Tanzer that everything he taught me in that Heidegger got swallowed up by Kant, right? Heidegger was a major tool. Dr. Tanzer's Heidegger was a major tool for me to understand Kant, right? Dr. Tanzer's Kant class, if you ask me, is the most challenging class I ever taken, and I've taken it so many times. I think it's the hardest class in a 20,000 student campus. And if I had access to other schools, I'd probably hold the same opinion about that class being the hardest class. After this video, the next few videos is going to be my interpretation of Dr. Tanzer's interpretation, or Dr. Tanzer's, what I got from Dr. Tanzer's lectures on Kant. And this one, I just want to say that because I ran into Nietzsche, he heavily influenced me to understand Kant's a priori a lot better. And we will be able to section this off and put it to the side and just start with how I interpret Dr. Tanger's Kant. And I am doing it this way because I feel like Nietzsche's interpretation helps me deliver this lecture out in a certain way to get into the rest of Kant, right? I just wanted to, make sure that y'all know that, I mostly got this from Dr. Tanzer, but this a priori thing is something that it's kind of unique to me, right? And then we'll go through all this stuff about my interpretation on Dr. Tanzer, and if we get to it, there'll be one part on Kant's aesthetic where I learned from some other person, and I'll just be able to point it out at that moment, really when we get there, but we'll talk about things about that a little bit before that. But don't get discouraged is what I want to say, and I guess this is where it kind of starts. So I started this video on predispositions, right? And when people refer to Kant, they say that, they have a certain type of content orientation, right? And you can look at a content orientation as a facet of understanding. And this here, our facet of understanding, we're going to say is our a priori orientations rather than content orientations. We're specifically talking about the a priori. And to prepare us for the a priori, previously I've talking about this idea of inscription, right? And I have said that I've taken a lot of classes, a lot of upper level philosophy classes in my lifetime, more than anybody that I've known. And in a way, I've been a sponge, right? And I've soaked in all this information, right? And I'm gonna say that when I go through campus over the years, I have a certain inscription in me of just sitting in these classes, right? And these teachers, a lot of these teachers come from Ivy League schools, and they've sat through their campus, right? And you know, they've all brought together for me, not for me, but you know, as I've sat through the class, for me, I was able to take in all this predisposition that they were explicating, right? And I want to say about the a priori, I'm just going to start talking about the a priori, but the first thing about the a priori is that the a priori has no words, right? And when we look around and we're in this a priori disposition, we have a predisposition of our understanding of everything that's inscribed, right? And this predisposition is it's pure inscription, right? And when we say a word about it, and we say that we understand the word, it kind of takes us out of this a priori disposition, right? It takes us into like a reality, right? In reality, we have words. And I want to say the a priori is, you could say, unlimited with inscription of sort, while our reality is limited, right? And we have certain access to a limited thing, right? To a limited experience. But the a priori is completely unlimited, and our experience limits these things. And I want to say that the a priori is unlimited, and the a priori is nothing but possibilities, right? It's pure possibilities. And I can't describe it, but it's pure possibilities. And in reality, in our experience, everything is also possible, but you are confined in time and space. Okay? So the a priori is all possibilities, unlimited. And our real experience is not necessarily unlimited like the a priori, but it has anything is possible, and it's unlimited within a limited time frame, right? Anything's possible, but it takes time. But the apriori is all possibilities. So far with the apriori, I've used two different words. One is inscription, and the other is possibilities, right? And in a way, those are just two facets of the same thing of the apriori, right? We could say that me sitting here on this chair, if somebody were to look at where I'm at physically, there's only a few possibilities that I could go, right, physically in my experience. I could go forward, I could go backwards, I can go to my right, and I could go to my left, right? And in a way, that's kind of like inscribed of where I'm at, right? And it's limited as opposed to the apriori that's unlimited, in a way. We could say that the apriori has nothing to do with experience, right? And if we were to say that the apriori has nothing to do with experience, it kind of like, in a way, deducts our real experience and says that the apriori is all experience, right? Every single experience, or that's even possible. It's pure possibilities again. As when you're limited, you have certain possibilities, and it's kind of like inscribed in your reality. So let's do it again. We in our experience are limited, right? And we're gonna say that everything is possible with time, right? With what we have in time, as we are in time, we are limited. But everything is possible. It's just gonna take time. And we are taking that, our limitations, and we're just going to deduct our limitations just to see how, what the apriori is in its pure form, right? And there really is no pure apriori. And like I said, the pure a priori does not have words like our limited form has words. Our limited experience has words. We will talk about the deduction more in the next video. But for now, I just want to stay with this a priori thing. And in general, when we learn about Kant, we just kind of translate the word a priori, right? And when you learn Kant, his first major book was The Critique of Pure Reason, and it's set up where the first thing you learn are two different types of knowledges. And the two types of knowledges are a priori, and a priori, translated from Latin, is a prior experience, right? And that's a type of knowledge. A priori is a type of knowledge. And the other type of knowledge is called a posteriori, right? A post experience, right? And after experience. So we got a prior experience, a priori, and a post experience, a posterior. And Dr. Tanzer has always told me that, students shouldn't look at it in terms of prior and post experience, because it kind of confuses the student, and it's not really what Kant is saying. And I'm going to try to explain to you why we shouldn't look at it that way, right? And just to say simply, the way I've kind of analyzed it and was able to critique the common conception of a prior experience and a post experience is we're looking at time here, right? And to say that things are a priori and a posteriori, it kind of has like this setup where there's a present and there's a future and there's a past, right? And when we look at it as a prior experience or a post experience, it's gonna have kind of like a sequential structure, right? You could say that there's this future thing that's connected to the present, and then there's, in the present it's also connected to this past thing, right? And it's in a sequence, right? And that's not really accurate of what Kant is saying. And to be more accurate of what Kant is saying, I'm going to look at it the way I've kind of put it together. And the way I kind of put the a priori and the a posteriori together is we got to look at our immediate space, right? And the word is immediate. And I'm going to try to define the word immediate in a way that only like a Kantian would kind of look at it, okay? And this is like kind of coming from his introduction of the Critique of Pure Reason. The immediate is spatial, right? Everybody that's watching this video has the experience of their immediate surroundings, right? They're experiencing it. And we are in space, right? And we have these sensations of time, you could say. And to say that this immediate here is what I'm going to say also, along with possibilities and inscription, it's spatial, right? It's spatial, and the time of our immediate experience, it has to do with both the future and the past only. Okay, I'm gonna try section off the way we look at it in a non-sequential time that I just kind of explained, to say that the immediate, right, is both our future and our interpretation of the past, right? And that's the a priori. So when I move forward, that's when we look at it, we're gonna learn about the past, right? We're gonna learn about the past, and the past has not happened yet, right? It's in the immediate. Our past isn't. So there's always like this. We're always in this immediate space where our next movement, you could say, has a resemblance of both our future and our past, right? But we're not there yet, okay? And that is the a priori, right? And that experience is, in a way, it's irrefutable that we have an immediate space that is going to tell us, where we could go forward and what happened, right, in the past, when we look at this immediate experience, right? A posteriori is the actual reality, right? And this is being sectioned off by on its own in its entirety, right? So we're looking at two things, right? The a priori and the a posteriori. And neither of them, when we look at it in these terms, are limited. But then when we talk about it, or our experience of these things, they become limited, right? So the actual present is the a posteriori, right? A posteriori is the actual present, while the a priori is the future and the past tense facets of our experience. All right, for this video, the immediate space is as far as I want to go. And the next video, everything's going to clear up. And it's going to get more technical. And you'll really get to see more of Kant and some of his base work of Kant. But just make sure what you see in this video is the immediate space is the a priori, and the immediate space has the facets of both the future and the past, right? While the a posteriori is the contingent moment. You could say, in a way, it's the present moment, right? And you could deduct our limited experience and take away the pure possibilities and our limited experience. The pure possibilities as in the a priori, just pertaining to the future and the past, and our experience, and you'd be left with the pure present, okay? And we are gonna get into that in the next video, okay? And I hope it wasn't so hard, but stick with it. This is the hardest stuff in all of philosophy, I believe. This next video, you're gonna see why, and the next few videos at least, and you can see why Kant is the hardest one. I think once you learn Kant, everything else is easier. Right? Thank y'all for watching. Look out for the next video. Wrap your mind around this. Try to focus, I guess, or challenge yourself. This is really hard to learn. This is probably my hardest video series that I will ever do. Kant is the hardest. So give it all of your attention, okay? Talk to y'all soon. I think give me like a week. I'm shooting for a week every week, but if it takes 2 weeks, just let it slide. If it takes 3 weeks, let it slide. It'll give you more time to think about it.